From time to time I feel insecure about my physical appearance and feel hopeless by all the materialism, corruption, anger I see around me. This affects my meditation practice and study. I feel I go steps back and fall back into old ways. What am I doing wrong? Well, I read this question, and one thing did occur to me. The first thing to say is that it's quite a broad question. I mean, you do have some points there, but in general, this is the kind of question where the best answer that you can give theoretically is practice meditation, right? Because again and again we have these questions about I have a problem in my life, what should I do? And the practice is the answer is the practice of the continuation of practice of meditation. But the idea that these insecurities and the hopelessness and so on are affecting your meditation is sort of a common misunderstanding about the practice of meditation. And I'm assuming that you're practicing correctly and you have good knowledge about the background of meditation, but it's quite often that we'll miss these important factors of the meditation, or these important mind states, and rather than meditate on them, we'll see them as a problem. So you have this idea that it's affecting the bad things are affecting your meditation practice, when in fact the point is to focus on them as your meditation practice. When you feel insecure, then insecurity becomes your meditation. When you feel hopeless, then hopelessness becomes your meditation. Now, in a sense, I'm going to assume that you're aware of this, and that you feel that there's something else, something greater than this that is the problem. And so what struck me about the phrasing of this question is the idea of self and the idea of entity. And so I think something useful that might be useful for you is an understanding of the order in which we do away with the negative states in our mind, because we don't get rid of anger, we don't get rid of greed, we don't get rid of our insecurities and our hopelessness right away. These aren't the first to go. The first thing to go is the idea of the existence of an entity, of any sort of entity. The first thing to realize is that there is no I in all of this. The idea that your meditation is going backwards, the idea that you're falling back into your old ways, the idea that you're doing something wrong, or that something is wrong, like there is a problem, all has to do with the idea of self, or the idea of an entity. And so it may very well be that you're not doing anything wrong, but what is wrong is this idea that when you put all of these mind states together, you come up with a self, you come up with the idea that there's a problem. And so the first thing that you have to work on is being able to separate, or being able to acknowledge the different parts of the experience one by one by one, and see them for what they are, rather than thinking about my meditation practice, my study, my old ways, a problem that I have, something that I'm doing wrong, my physical appearance. Obviously, I mean, that's really the key one there, is the answer to feeling insecure about yourself and feeling bad about yourself, that somehow I am a bad meditator, or I am having problems in my meditation. What we often get is people saying they're stuck in their meditation. People who practice for years feel like they're not progressing. And it can generally be, or it can often be, because they still have this attachment to an I, to a self. So they're thinking in terms of themselves as a being. And they get this idea that somehow they are staying the same or they are stuck, because it's like a hole, and you've got this hole, and that's the way out, but the self is too big to fit in the hole. This is the problem. So what we're trying to do is fit ourselves in the exit, or through the door, through the way out. This is kind of a good metaphor to think of. You have to throw away the self. The I can't become enlightened. You have to give up this whole idea that I am trying to progress somewhere, or I am trying to become something, or I have this quality, I have that quality. You give up this whole idea of progress and begin to look at what's right here and now, whether it's a unwholesome state of mind or a wholesome state of mind, whether it's a state of good concentration, a state of poor concentration, whether it's a state of worldliness or a state of spirituality, or so on, and get rid of this idea that I am falling back, that I am regressing, or so on, or that we have. If you look up, there was a man here recently who's been coming on this chat room and says, I'm an alcoholic. I mean, even that is a good example of how we begin to identify with mind states, and we identify with individual phenomena. Your way forward, and all of our way forward, is to give all that up and look at what's right here and right now. Give up the whole idea of I'm progressing, I'm getting better, or I'm not progressing, I'm getting worse, and so on. I mean, that's not obviously the key is the meditation practice, meditating on those things that you're talking about. But I think that's an important point that I wanted to bring up. The whole idea of the overarching the self, which is over top of all of your problems. And when you give that up, you'll see that your problems are not really as big as they seem to be. So
I just want to add, until it comes to that moment that you can give up yourself, that you have that deep insight and understand that there is not a self within the body or the mind, it is very normal to feel like stepping back or falling back into old ways. That happens to everyone until the insight, the knowledge really is established in the mind, really is understood. And until that, it will be like that you fall back from time to time, and then you will progress, and then fall back again. So that's very normal.
Yeah, and there was one thing that along the same lines that I wanted to say is that it's often not falling back, and meditators will repeatedly become discouraged when they think they've overcome a problem and see it pop up again. And quite often it's not falling back at all. It's the echoes or the cycles that are still very much a part of our old habits. So until these habits work their way out, and until you, as Palanyani said, until you have that realization that allows you to break the habits, they're going to keep coming back again and again. And part of what I was trying to say is the practice is not necessarily in the beginning to get rid of the habits, but to see the habits as not self. To see this slipping back, it's not you slipping back. It's perfectly normal because it's the habit of the mind. The beginning basic practice is to see that all of these things are impermanent. That you can't push them away and say they're never going to come back. It's not sure. They might come back in the next moment. They're suffering. It means you can't form them into something that is going to satisfy you, and they're uncontrollable. That they're not really you. These negative emotions that are coming up are not really. They really have nothing to do with you. They're an external thing they're an impersonal thing that arises again and again. part of the practice is seeing that, and so it's kind of a shift from getting upset at yourself for bad things to seeing that those bad things are not really yours, are not really you. And that comes from seeing moment to moment to moment, looking at them. You want to jump in here?